Happening today, discussion on potentially closing a Menasha Elementary School. Administrators are expected to bring recommendations tonight to the school board meeting in regards to closing Jefferson Elementary. Menasha Joint School District officials say the potential closure is part of the plan to make up for part of a $3.5 million budget shortfall. Under that plan, Jefferson students will be bused to Butamore Elementary. The board isn't expected to vote on any closure until the end of the month, and the changes would go into effect next school year.
First, Lord, about